What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's been a great day. Today we are back on the C5 Corvette and we're installing some coilovers for the car, getting it ready for the next autocross event. Now, these coilovers are not new. I bought these used off Facebook Marketplace, but they're not any kind of coilovers. These are Doug Rippey Motorsports coilovers. And if you know anything about Corvettes, you do know and you heard of Doug Rippey before. So yeah, I picked up a used set of Doug Rippey Motorsports coilovers. Don't let the appearance fool you guys. They look used and worn, but they are still in great shape and they still hold fluid in the shock. So that's all that matters. The guy that I bought these from also threw in a set of headers. These are Flowtech headers, long tube headers. Didn't have the X-Pipe. I had to buy the X-Pipe. It was not a big deal because the X-Pipe is only like a couple $100. Oh, he also threw in a set of C6 Z51 Calipers, and these are actually a lot bigger than the factory ones that are on there. But if I do run these calipers, I have to run a 18-inch wheel in the front. The 17-inch wheel in the front will not work with these calipers. I'll have to run, which I want to run a square setup as far as tire wise. So eventually I do need to buy another set of 18s for the front, but that will be later on. The calipers can wait for now. I did also install a quick release NRG steering wheel and hub. I did not make a video on it yet. I will make that soon for you guys. I did the same thing on my Lightning as well. It's basically the exact same setup. Not that hard, really easy to do. But like I said, guys, I will do that video for you guys soon. But right now, I need to get the car jacked up. Got the wheels off on both sides on the front. And what we're only going to need to disconnect is our upper control arm bolts on both sides. We are going to disconnect our sway bar end link from the lower control arm. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect one side of the tie rod so we can sneak the leaf spring out of there. So we're going to go ahead and do the driver's side, disconnect the tie rod from the knuckle, and then we can go ahead and unbolt the upper shock bolt and then the lower two shock bolts on the lower control arm there and there. And unfortunately on this car, it does have the F45 suspension, which has the adjustable dampening control, whatever. So I do have to buy, or I have to go to a GM dealer where they have to disable the actual active suspension on this car. We got the up control arm off of the top. We went ahead and disconnected our sway bar end link from the lower control arm, and we went ahead and disconnected our tie rod end from the knuckle. And now we can go ahead and access our lower bolts on the shocks, so we can go ahead and do those. But before that, I'm going to go ahead and do the top one. That way it's got some pressure on there and it doesn't have the less likelihood of the strut rod actually spinning when I hit it with the impact. So it's got a little bit of tension. Just set it off to the side here. And there is our top shock bolt right there. I removed the top nut now. And we went ahead and disconnected our shock. Like I said, we do have the active shocks on this car. So we have the bolts. Take off our lower bolts now. Now we can go ahead and lower the jack and remove our old shock out of the way. This is our old shock here. Alright, so I got both sides out. And I'm going to show you guys kind of basically what I was working with. So this is the stock shock, obviously. And as you can tell, I can compress this. Let me go ahead and just pull this boot off. Compress this. And it doesn't even come out. It just stays inside. That's when you know that you have a bad shock. When it just compresses in and it doesn't come out. I have to force it. Yeah, this thing was blown. This is what I was working with around the track. And both sides are like that. They just don't come back out. They just stay down at all. So these are terrible. And the first event that I went to, I didn't place. The second time I went out there, I got 6th place. And then last month, I got 2nd place. I got beat out by a C8 Corvette, which is not bad, considering my shocks are blown and I'm basically just on monoleaf and sway bars. So that just tells you how great these cars are and how great of a driver I am. No, I'm just kidding. Anyways, how great of these cars they are just out of the box. So those coilovers should make quite a bit of a difference. Now we can go ahead and remove the old monoleaf out of here that we have both shocks out of there. And the tension on these are already off because I had dropped the car and these are actually raised up all the way. The bump stop is not touching the lower controller. I can put my finger in between, so we know there's no more tension. Basically all we have to do now is unbolt it from here. So there's gonna be 1, 2, 3, 4 more bolts, and this monoleaf will just come back down out. Alright. Oh, that's really light. Alright guys, so I got both coilovers and the vise here, and I'm just going ahead and adjusting the collars here to the reference mark on the old shock here. So that was the reference mark where the car was sitting at its resting spot on the ground. And I'm just going to transfer that over to the new one here. So I'm going to leave it there for now. I'm going to go ahead and transfer it over to the other side, and then we'll go ahead and make them identical, and then we can go ahead and put it back in the car and then lower it down and see where it sits. And if we need to raise or lower the car, we can do that. Alright guys, got the coilover back in the car on both sides. I don't want to bore you with the reverse steps of installing the same thing. Basically, you just reverse the steps like the shock. Still have to connect the tie rod in. That's the only thing I got left to do, and then we can go ahead and put the wheels on. I'm thinking it might be a little bit too low because it's really tucked up in the wheel well. If not, it'll be perfect, but it's up. It's pretty high. I'll show you on the other side where I have the at least the tie rod connected, but you can tell that it's, you can see the lower of the rotor, it's really up in the wheel well. It might be just right, or it might be a little bit too low. I might have to lower it down a little bit more, but anyway, we'll see what now. Go ahead and put the wheels on. Wow, this side is like slammed. Way too slammed. Yeah, that's the back, and that is the front. Yeah, we're way too slammed. We need to go ahead and jack it back up and maybe add about 1.5 inches. Okay. All right, the Corvette is back on the ground, and I like the stance. The stance is actually perfect. It's probably right where I had it before I put the coilovers in. So I'm gonna leave it there. I did 1.5 inches more in the front, so it actually puts it right where I want it. I gotta get started on the rear now. The rear should be identical to the front. Nothing too crazy. It should be the same as what we did. So it shouldn't be any more different, I don't think. But all we do have it is an axle in the back now in our way. So we're gonna go ahead and jack up the back, and let's get started on that. I just got the car in the back jacked up, and I already went ahead and removed a couple things. I got the outer tie rod disconnected from the knuckle. I've already disconnected the sway bar from the lower control arm, and I've removed the big 24mm bolt that holds the lower shock to the control arm, and I've already disconnected the junk shocks here. The last thing I got to do is go ahead and disconnect our upper shock to the upper strut mount, and then we can see about pulling this thing out of here and putting the new one in. So yeah, the back's pretty simple, but yeah, we still need to remove the obviously the monoleaf from the car as well. Alright, so the rear shocks were just as bad as the front. They're not even, yeah, they're not doing anything actually, so these were just as bad as the front ones. At the driver's side, all disassembled as well. Got the shock out of it just like the passenger side, same way. And all we're gonna do now is we're gonna basically remove the nut and bolt from the monoleaf and the lower control arm, pull the bolt out of there, and we can unbolt it from the lower the subframe just like we did on the front, and take the monoleaf out of there. Here's our last monoleaf. Front and rear. Alright, let's get the coilover on now. So when I got these from the person on Marketplace, they have these marked, so passenger inside. So that's the way I'm gonna go, and then we'll go ahead and adjust it once we get in the car. But yeah, for now, let's go ahead and put this in. Make sure we jack up the bottom of the control arm. So as I'm jacking the lower control arm, I'm going to make sure that these holes line up here, and I'm also going to go ahead and insert our sway bar end link into our lower control arm before we can't do that anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and do that as well. Alright, now we can go ahead and reassemble everything back up, and then we'll put the wheel on and lower it back down, and then we can see exactly where we are and adjust it from there. That's actually like dead on compared to the front. It looks like it's got the same height actually, so I'm gonna leave it there for now, and let's go drive it really quick and see what it feels like. Took it out for a nice little drive, and wow, this thing rides so much better than it was before. Now the ride's a little stiff, but that's expected with these autocross coilovers. It's going to be a little a firmer ride versus like a BC racing coilover that's going to give you a little bit more of adjustability as far as dampening. But these are just spring rate are basically made for autocross and road racing, and man, I could already tell that this thing is going to handle so much better in the next event. I will do a follow-up video on the autocross as far as with the coilovers and how well I do. Hopefully I get first place this time. Hopefully this is the ticket for me getting first place, is the coilovers. But I can already tell you guys that this is going to handle so much better. You saw the factory shocks that were blown out, so it was basically working with mono leaves and sway bars. Is all I had, all the suspension I had originally on the car. But we will see how well she does in the next couple of days. Stay tuned for the next video. Like I said, I will be doing a exhaust video as well, and I will do a little bit update on the steering wheel. I did take the quick disconnect steering wheel off, and I just bolted it up straight to the hub because I didn't like the way how it was too closer to me. And once you remove the seat and you go to a Amazon seat or aftermarket seat, we had the telescoping steering wheel. That will no longer work no more if you go to aftermarket seats, because that's actually part of the factory seat module. So if you disconnect that, you're not going to have that ability no more, so you won't be able to adjust it in and out. You only have the ability to move it up and down, because that's manually. So you didn't know that, you do now, because that's what I figured out. Until then guys, we'll see you guys in the next one. Stay tuned, please like, subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one.